Hello, time for some notes today. Okay, if you are writing these in your toolkit, which I kind of think not too many people are, but if you are, you can write this on page 70. That's at the beginning of chapter 8. And the topic we're going to talk about today is lines, arrays, and line segments. Oh, I left the S off the end there. Segments. This is going back a little bit, so it's really just a review before we get into the topic of angles, which is really where that starts up in the chapter in the next section. So lines, arrays, line segments are all geometric lines, right, that we use to build angles and triangles, rectangles, all those things. But we've got to start somewhere, and there's three different types of lines, and that's what we're talking about today. So we'll start with the first one, which is, we'll go in the order I wrote it. So we'll start with a line. If we call it a line, it means it's got a beginning and an end that go on forever, meaning arrows on both ends. So a line continues in both directions. Forever. We can imagine what that would look like. And if we're going to name this line, lines have points along them. They can have lots of different points, but we need at least two to give it a name. And so if it's a line, you can start in any direction. We'll just call this one AB, but we could call it BA. It would be the same thing. And we basically put a little miniature version of a line over the top, and that means that is line AB. Okay, big thing about the line, arrows on both ends. Okay, array has a starting point, but then it goes infinitely in one direction. So it has an arrow on one end and just a dot on the other. Now we need another point to name it, but this means that it starts, but at the opposite end here it continues infinitely in that direction, and the arrow could be on the other end, but it's got one starting point and one arrow, and so we'll call this CD, why not? And if we're going to name this one, now the array is the only one where the order matters. You have to start from the dot. So we have to say CD. We can't say DC on this one, but on the line you could switch it. And so just like the line, we have to put a little miniature version of the array over the top. So arrow on one end, and that says ray CD. That's what that is telling us, that this is line AB. And the last type of line we have is a line segment, which starts with a point and ends with a point. No arrows on the line segment, right? It starts and it stops. Unlike the line that goes on in both directions infinitely. Let's call this one EF. Right? These points, these little dots along the line, we give them letters to give them names. So if I'm using the symbols to indicate this segment, a segment like a line, you can go in any order. I could put the E first or the F first. The only one where the order matters, again, is the ray. And I put a little version of a segment over the top, which means no arrows, right? The big deal is the line has arrows on both ends, the ray has an arrow on one end, and the segment no arrows. So this means segment EF. And again, this one, I'm going to change the color here, maybe. Okay, this one we could also call FE, right? We could switch the direction. This one we can call BA and put the little arrows on the top. But the segment, or the ray, you have to start from the point and go towards the arrow, or it's not correct. Those are the three types of lines, and that's what you're going to practice today. That's it.